Should India focus on improving the quality of its existing cities more, or should it be focusing more on setting up entirely new cities? What should the mix be? Should it be doing everything? Abhishek, can you please talk about your view on this, because you have projects in existing urban areas. You also have a project in Navi Mumbai.
I think the answer, unfortunately, is that it has to be both, and we will have to find the governance structures to support the bandwidth to do both. I think existing cities, like Meera correctly said, are where we all live, and the efforts to get in the right governance structures, because I think all the other consequences, if we are able to, if we just take the example of Delhi, which 20 years ago became a city-state, and the people were effectively empowered to elect those who are going to run them. You've seen how in the last 20 years, Delhi's taken a significant leap ahead of Mumbai. Now, I personally believe that Mumbai will always be an integral part of Maharashtra for historic and cultural reasons. But that doesn't change the fact that we can have a much more empowered form of government where the citizens of this city, the 22 million people who live in the MMR today, are empowered to elect the people who are going to decide the future of the city, because when they feel responsibility directly to these 22 million people, only then will we get them to start thinking about how best to improve this city. And all the great ideas that are, in this room, many smart people in this city who want to contribute time, money, energy, ideas, will be able to effectively get into the system. Equally, I believe that there is this, about numbers vary, and somewhere around 400 to 600 million new people who will move to urban areas in India over the next 20 years. And I do believe that the history of the world has shown that moving to urban areas improves productivity, improves the economic potential of each individual, and hence I think urbanization is needed to give Indians higher opportunity. And I think the private experiments which started off with things like Ambi Valley or Lavasa, which are more second home destinations, but really thinking about not just real estate, but cities as a whole. You're talking about education, you're talking about recreation, you're talking about culture, arts, security, governance, so on and so forth, have to now get replicated in places where people want to live and work on a daily basis. And I think that will be something that the government has to come in, and the private sector has to play a role, because the private sector has ideas and capital. The government has the power to make the rules and regulations. Very much like DIFC has come up in Dubai as an island within Dubai, which has own sets of rules, etc., in order to try an experiment, see if those experiments are successful in the social context, and if they are, they can be taken outside. We're trying something like this next to Mumbai, in a city, what we're calling a city called Palava, where eventually about 1 million people will live. But I think many such experiments need to be run, and I think they will both feed off each other: existing city improvement through empowerment in governance, and new city creation by involvement of private sector, along with governments thinking about how to upgrade the rules to support both together.
For the cities that are here already, Meera, you advocate development in rural areas, but as you point out, we have cities already. Can they be better managed for the benefit of all residents under the current regulatory or the political bureaucratic structure? Do Indian cities necessarily need a strong mayor or something equivalent to what has happened in Delhi, even if statehood, so to speak, is not possible for other big cities?
Well, Tony, we certainly have to fix the governance. There's no question about it, because today, who is in charge of Bombay? Or in Mumbai? There's no one in charge. The chief minister is not in charge, the mayor is not in charge, the sheriff is not in charge, municipal commissioner is not in charge, pretty much no one is in charge. And therefore that has to be, there has to be an alignment of accountability and authority in either an individual or in a body. That has to happen. There's also the other problem that you have the BMC, which is accountable through their commissioners or corporators to the people. They have directly elected representatives. And it is a body which has a budget of 39,000 crores, which is larger, for example, than the state of Kerala. So in one sense, there's no shortage of money. On the other hand, you have kind of parastatal organizations like MMRDA, which are pretty much accountable to nobody. So they've got massive budgets of their own, and they have no accountability to the public either. And often we hear that BMC and MMRDA are working at cross purposes to each other. So you have within a state or within a city-state, which is the commercial heart of the country, confusion at all levels. So this absolutely needs to be fixed from a structural perspective. The other thing is that you have the 74th Amendment and you have the Nagar Raj Bill, which talks about decentralization really down to the ward level. And if you look at the model Nagar Raj Bill, which was framed by the people who have drafted the constitutional amendment, it's actually a very, very fine piece of legislation. Unfortunately, the way it's adopted gives nobody any powers. What it talks about is at the ward level, that the people in the ward and in the, basically at the resident welfare, at the area sabha level, have the authority, financial authority to decide how is the budget spent, on what is it spent. There is an alignment of accountability and authority down at a very decentralized level, so that people who are benefiting from the service or participating there are also participating in the governance. Regrettably, the way it is implemented, even the way it has been put into motion, it is completely toothless. So even where you have the constitutional ability to fix governance at a decentralized level, the political establishment have made the decision simply not to do so, because then you create opportunities for rent seeking, etc. So in terms of structurally fixing it, absolutely this is something that needs to be done.
Okay, Professor Pete, what is your view on that? Will it be structurally fixed?
Again and again, I keep on thinking that in India, we don't have epistemic problems or conceptual problems. We have visited and we have reports and ideas and everything. The problem is that de facto, these things in translation are lost. Now, for example, 74th Constitutional Bill, I know for a fact, was written as an afterthought.
Is it?
We had the 73rd Constitutional Amendment to do with PRIs, Panchayati Raj. Then somebody must have realized, we also have urbanization. So let's get the 74th. So it is like the old times gender thing, every he was chained to she and that kind of a thing. In that, doing that, they did not do certain things which were very important. They used words like, the state may devolve. Now, nobody wants to devolve. You discuss decentralization at the level of principle, everyone likes it. But to tell the states that you may devolve if you want, they will not. It was a simple matter of writing shall. Now, there is an interesting thing that the center always will go for decentralization, because the disutility that it gets by going away, whatever devolution happens, it's much better for it if it is shared between the provincial or the state and the lower government. The state government, it's not so. And I'm not completely blaming the state government, because what has happened is we've got some other rules like FRLs and so on, which has been leading to a reduction in the discretionary fiscal space with the state government itself. So it can't pretty much devolve. So what is happening is you have ad hoc kind of grants being given here and there. And the best way to bring about, ownership was talked about, of ownership of the city. Who owns this city, kind of an argument, or who's going to run this city in an accountable fashion. Absolutely, you need something like this. Today what is happening is there is conflict of interest between the commissioner, who is an IAS officer, who wants to become the cabinet secretary in the state and perhaps go up there. So you need to, all these things are there in the literature, whether you need a separate cadre for the lower bodies, local bodies, not lower. They may be paid far more in Mumbai like they do in Shanghai, who I am told is paid far more than the cabinet secretary at the center. Now, somebody has to be there. Now, there is just one more point I want to make just now, and that is the multiplicity of kind of authorities that we have, some elected, some not elected. Parastatals, these parastatals also are not all from the state. Some of them are from the center. The largest public land owner in Mumbai is the Bombay Port Trust and Railways. And they are in big litigation over the years with MADA and SRA about whose land is it kind of a thing, you know. So we need first of all to get the land markets in order, at least learn from the various experiments that have happened in Europe, in America, in Canada, and Australia, and so on, about land commissions and how they manage their public lands and leverage them for extracting resources for financing infrastructure. All these things are required to be done, you know. And you know, place like Mumbai, as she was saying, try thinking of an empowered, directly elected mayor. He sits on such a big budget that the chief minister next door becomes like irrelevant. No politician is going to want to do that kind of, or allow for that kind of a thing, you know. So it is all in the realm of possibility, and it can be done. It has to be actually, the decentralization in the true sense involves decongestion, devolution, delegation. All the three have to happen. What is happening currently is most often the books become, so when I kind of point out to the governmental agencies, listen, you guys are not decentralizing, they say, sir, what are you talking? Look at the budgets. Now look at the budgets, they will say, yes, the budgets have grown at the local level, even your Gram Panchayat level budgets have grown. Now Gram Panchayat, you see that the doctors and the teachers who come there, they are not turning up. This I know as a village person, right? But does he care? No, because who writes the CR? The line ministries. So there are these issues that they don't have any control. In the governmental mechanism, who writes the confidential reports are important. They are written in the line ministries, and the line ministries are not ready to decentralize their power at the lower level. So all these things, when they happen and you have an ownership and accountability, then cities can thrive and have their own kind of identity, existence and improvement. And just last thing, she talked about the ward committees, which is like the reasonably well functioning Panchayati Raj institutions. Today, what is the extent of autonomy? Because I look at your power in terms of expenditure autonomy, not the budget and the book, how much is transacted, but how much can you spend from your own budget, so called, the expenditure autonomy. The ward level, even in Mumbai, can't spend more than say 50,000, 1 lakh or something like that. Now what have our politicians done? The MLAs have caught for themselves what are called as the MLA and MP LAD funds.
Correct.
Now if they have 2 crore rupees to spend on development projects without using the system, what interest does he have to go and sit in the ward committee to decide and use the system for delivery? It doesn't. Now the point is, all this is known, we need to work at changing it.